Well, I grew up in the Portland area in Oregon. My parents, I mean, I come from a long line of Oregonians, and so much so that, I mean, I'm going way back, but I think it was three generations before my mom. So we're talking my great 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 grandmother. She actually wrote a book on her travels on the Oregon Trail. And so that was a fun discovery many years ago in our family's heritage. And yeah, I grew up in the Portland area, loved it. It's raining today, so I feel right at home.
I heard it rains a lot out there, specifically, and especially in Portland.
It does, but I do need to give a little shout out to Portland. It gets a bad rap because of Seattle.
Yeah.
Seattle's the one where it's like 3/4 out of the year it's raining. Portland area, yes, there's a lot of rain, but it's not as bad, like personally speaking.
No, I respect it. Sarah's from Washington, so
Okay, yeah.
she's always talking about, like, I miss the rain. She loves this weather. This is like home, you know.
Yes.
I guess that's cool to kind of see. Maybe today was a
Yeah.
Oregon heard you calling. It was like, hey, we're gonna bring the weather to you. You're
Yeah.
talking about us today. So you were talking about your great grandmother. Do you get to remember them at all? Are you able to be that close?
Well, this, I mean, she was, unfortunately long gone before.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think my mom even knew her.
Oh, wow.
But we discovered just going through, I think, her grandmother's stuff. She discovered that book that she published, and my mom has it just, in the cedar chest, really preserved. But it was really neat to discover that. And yeah, but my family loves Oregon, and I love it. We go up there pretty often, but, we're down here in Southern California now.
Right. Yeah. See, can you tell me a little bit more about your parents as well?
Yeah. So my parents, wonderful, wonderful parents. They also grew up in Oregon, and super hardworking people, and yeah, just wonderful people. And just looking back now as a parent, I am so intensely grateful for who they are and how they raised my brother and I. I mean, no parent's perfect, but
Right.
it was such a blessing. And the neat thing is my parents actually grew up in pretty unstable households. Like between my parents, there were like 14 marriages, like, just a lot of divorce, remarriage. And when my parents met and they knew that they wanted to get married, they were like, they put a stick in the sand and said, no,
Right.
like, we're not doing that.
I think you have to kind of appreciate the kind of the trials of someone,
Yes.
so that you don't reap the, how does someone say, you don't want to repeat the history of, like, kind of your past. So it's kind of cool for you that your family was, especially your parents, were able to recognize, like, whoa, we don't want to go through the same thing that they went through. Let's see
Yeah.
how we can make that better. What do you think it was that kind of was the big deciding or the change for them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the hurt, that they had incurred over the years, I think from, their parents' remarriages, but at the same time, that's also when they found Jesus also, and they, embraced his values, and they were like, okay, we're not doing this. We want to raise a family that's thriving. We're going to stick it through even when it gets hard, in marriage. And I think, gosh, in 6 years, they'll celebrate their 50th anniversary. So,
Yo, that's unheard of.
yeah,
That's like unheard of nowadays.
Yeah.
It feels like it's very easy to kind of just separate, especially kind of the way the world is now.
Totally.
It's cool that faith is kind of what brought them to continue and pushing
Yeah.
forward and stuff. Like, that's not really talked about as well. It's so. Where did you come into the picture?
Yeah. Well, I think it was 5 years later after they got married, they had me and my brother 2 years later.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I came into play, and had a really great childhood and lots of outdoor adventures, being Oregon especially. you know.
Yeah.
Lots of going to the beach and hikes and stuff like that, as a parent now, I feel like I've been drawn to recreate for my kids,
Yeah.
because I look back on those years with a lot of fondness, and just, I feel like that's even where I found God, was out in the still places, like out, in fields, and just like getting away from the busyness of it all.
They say God is in nature, and you can kind of see the vastness of things, and
Yeah.
just wow, just and not just how small you are, but just per se, just like how intricate and how grand things can be. I've personally never been to Oregon, but I imagine a childhood out there is pretty fun. How's the people? Did you have like any really cool childhood friends that you clicked with really well?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I'm one of those, I'm looking back. I had a lot of friends at different times, and I have a couple of lifers, that we've kept in contact and stuff. But I don't know, I just had like best friends for a couple of years, and then like, I don't know, it was just kind of funny looking back. But yeah, I have a lot of great memories of like swamp walking with my friend Sarah in her backyard. I'm like, I don't know if I'd let my kids do that.
Okay, can you describe what that is like? I've never heard of that term.
Yes. So, I mean, really, it's not like a swamp like in Louisiana, like you picture.
Sure, yeah.
It was just like literally an overflowed area in her backyard, and we just put on big boots, and it was freezing cold, but who cares, right? When you're a kid. And just going out there and like getting our feet stuck in the mud and helping each other out and creating drama for ourselves and living a story. Yeah, that was it. It was just so fun. And we come in and, mom would have hot cocoa for us and, that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. So, you and your brother got along, hopefully?
We did, for the most part. Good. We had our moments, of course, but... Of
course.
Yeah.
And I guess early school years, was that kind of just pretty straightforward as well? Or I guess I don't know how big your family is. I'm not sure if you have like a ton of cousins or...
Not really. I have 2 cousins on one side and 2 cousins on the other. And we would see each other, but... Yeah, it wasn't like a huge family.
It was a close one.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. And we saw each other pretty regularly. Everybody was pretty close geographically, so there was never any like, let's go visit Aunt Sally over in, Pennsylvania or something. So everybody was pretty close.
Okay, cool. So early school years, were you like a huge academic? Were you like killing it, or was it?
And it's interesting. Like, I think that formed a lot of my identity that now as an adult I see. I did work really hard at school, and I felt like that was a niche for me that I really enjoyed, being able to put in a lot of effort and then get a good result back. And I was in control of that. You know what I mean? That's where that developed for me. But I really loved it. I loved learning. I loved reading. Still do. And I got into music, playing piano, and that was like just such a wonderful... I didn't love it at first, actually, and then I quit. But then I went back to it when I actually... Okay, so real story was my next door neighbor, she started piano at the same time as me. But then I was like, I don't want to do this anymore after a couple of years. But one day I could hear, because she was she lived across the street. It's probably a summer day where the doors were open. I could hear her playing, and it was this little, like, basic concerto, but it was beautiful. And I think my mom lovingly said, yeah, I mean, Michelle, if you had stuck with it, you'd probably be able to play something like that. And I was like, I'm going to figure out how to play that. So
you had this competitive spirit.
I did. I was like, I'm going to do this. And so, I mean, that's where I started developing like an ear for stuff. And I was like, okay, let me figure out, I know the song. I was going to like try to figure it out. And sure enough, my parents were like, do you want to take lessons again? And I'm like, yes. And that's where I really got serious with music.
And how would you describe your personality when you were younger?
Yeah, you know what? I was pretty quiet. I didn't want to create waves. I was very like, actually, interestingly, recently, I remembered something that was, like I was awarded when I was in Sunday school that I actually needed to just almost like renounce off of my life. And it was this, it was like the end of the year at Sunday school where it's like, okay, here's your award. We see you as this, it was totally well-meaning,
Yeah.
But the one they gave to me was, Michelle, she's the church mouse. She's so quiet and all that. And I hadn't realized how much I had like let that in to my person. And so I was quiet. I was just pretty quiet. Didn't want to make waves. Just went along, pretty compliant. My parents said, I had my moments, of course, but I wanted to please. And so I carried that, for a long time with me, but maybe we'll get to that later.
Sure. And is that like, you feel like that carried on to the kind of the music side of you as well? Do you feel like that? A lot of people say that musicians tend to, their personalities comes out within the music. Even if you're playing other pieces, the way you play the piece still has your own kind of flavor and style to it.
Yeah.
Do you tend to play more quieter? I don't know if that sounds the right term, but quieter music, or more reserved, more composed? Or do you feel like you actually played the opposite? You wanted to be more aggressive with your music, or I don't know how music played a big part in that time of your life, but I'm just so curious.
Yeah, that's a great question. It really, like growing up, so I really got more serious about it around age 12.
Okay.
And, starting through the teenage years. And like in general, I love the more just placid, just calm music.
Yeah.
But I remember times where I was so attracted to like Rachmaninoff and just like, just going crazy on it.
Yeah.
And I mean, bless my family's heart. Like they never complained that was loud, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was really grateful for that way to express my emotions and get through those, teenage years and just all that was going on. But yeah, we joke though, because my husband's like a hardcore rock guy, and he married a super like, let's do like Kenny G, like maybe not Kenny G, but